Call the meeting of the Sweetwater County School District Number 1 Board of Trustees to order. If you would stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's see, we have recognition next. Recognition.
Good evening, Chair Jellicoe, Superintendent McGovern, members of the board, and Ms. Frady. Could you please join me down for recognitions? Isabel Frady is our student representative from Rock Springs High School. We would like to thank Isabel for joining the Board of Trustees this evening and sharing a fresh student perspective. Isabel's attendance sends a positive message to all the student body to become involved in a respectful way. Our students are capable of great things. Civic engagements is one of those things. Thank you, Isabel. Could I please invite Mr. Supis, Mrs. Downs-Lewis, Mr. Boland, Mr. Straka, and Mr. Akers up for a picture. She can come grab her certificate. She gets two. Yeah, she gets one for another one.
Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. We're gonna do one more. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Good job. I know. Again and again. Sweetwater number 1 had a great turnout at the select committee on the school facilities meeting in Cheyenne back in October. Parents, Principal Supis, Assistant Principal Straka, Superintendent McGovern, School Facilities Director Dan Celaroli, Mayor Mickelson, Chair Jellicoe, Vice Chair Thompson, and students advocated on behalf of Rock Springs High School and Sweetwater County School District number 1. We would like to recognize and thank Rock Springs High School students and parents that testified at the meeting. Isabel Frady, Daxton Shelley, Mackenzie Hackney, Ashton Toller, Josh Sorensen, and David Stoffer. We would also like to honor Casey DeMori and Natalie Powell for their work in composing a letter and gathering signatures on behalf of Rock Springs High School Parent Involvement Team. Thank you for all of those involved and their continued support in advocating for the true need of the new Rock Springs High School. Our community needs to keep up the great work. Could we please invite back all of the high school administration, and you can come up and grab your certificates. Congratulations, thank you. She's not here. Okay, you can take it, sure. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Good job, ladies.
Yeah, thank you. Natalie, thank you.
He must have, yeah. Just him.
All right, guys, ready? 1, 2, 3. We're gonna do one more. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Look at you go. Rock Springs High School has 2 students recognized by the College Board for their scores. Joshua Sorensen and Tyler Davies received a National Rural and Small Town Award and earned academic honors for the College National Board Recognition programs. These programs celebrate students' hard work in high school and showcase their strong academic performance. We're thrilled to celebrate the students and recognize them for the great work they've been doing. We're proud of their strong academic performance and in the classroom and on the College Board assessments. Thanks so much. There are so much that makes students unique, and receive the honor reinforces this as an asset in their future. This is a benefit not only for students, but also for college and universities committed to recruiting diverse and talented students. Congratulations, Joshua Sorensen and Tyler Davies. Rock Springs High School Administration, would you please come up for a picture? Congratulations. Congratulations. That's awesome. That's so awesome.
Ready? 1, 2, 3. One more. 1, 2, 3. Thank you, guys.
This evening, we begin a new tradition of honoring employees as they reach milestones for their service within Sweetwater Number 1. Tonight, we would like to recognize those employees that have completed 5 years of current service. Many of our staff have served in various schools or departments over the years. So this evening, we will mention their current roles, and employees will be called up by their school department with their administrators or directors. Thank you for the following employees. We're going to start with the CAB and the IT department. So Jenny Gaviotis, Accounting Systems Specialist. Sylvia Kachnowski, Title III Secretary. Garrett Howley, Receiving Warehouse Assistant. Tammy Giles Bucknell, Tech 1 Specialist. William Parker, Tech 2 Specialist. Timmy Liu, Tech 3 Specialist. And Kylie Hutchinson, Tech 1 Specialist. So could I have Stephanie and Jody Gardner, Scott Duncan, and Linda Carter come up and recognize with your employees?
We'll teach them how to do that.
Okay.
Okay.
Come on, Sylvia, get up here.
Congrats, yay! Congrats, Sylvia.
Jenny? Garrett? Tammy?
You go in front here.
Thank you. Oh, thank you. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, Desert View, Kendra Coy, Special Education Teacher. And then Rory Pedri, she's Desert View, Rock Springs Junior High, and Rock Springs High School District Nurse. Yay.
Okay, are you guys ready? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Rory.
Eastside Elementary, Jasmine Garcia, 4th grade teacher, Anna Johnston, 6th grade teacher. Could Mrs. Searle and Dr. Wells please come up also?
So first, just down this way, like if you look on the street back here, that should where you All right. Okay, guys, ready? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Okay, from our facilities department, Marty Haas, custodian at Farson Eden School, Jacob Howells, maintenance. And could I get Mr. Salaroli, Mr. Portillo, and Mr. Benares up, Mrs. Rosanico, up to take pictures, please? Are they here? Oh, they, yeah. Or no, might be.
Yeah, ready?
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, ready? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2.
Okay, from North Park Elementary, Tina Taylor, social worker, Jessica Pinland, special education paraprofessional. So Mr. Groob, if they're here. Oh, okay. Do you want to come and grab their certificates for? And get a picture? Just kidding. Thank you. Nutrition Services, Fenny Plaza, Central Kitchen Manager, Laura Johnson, van driver. Are they here? Yes. And
Ready? 1, 2, 3. One more. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Overland, Jenny Colbert, Rock Springs Junior High Special Education Paraprofessional and Child Care Assistant, Roxana Lopez Campos, paraprofessional, Bernice Chavez Vasquez, paraprofessional, Cecilia Vasquez, Head Start teacher, Cami Vesterby, paraprofessional. If you're here, please come up. Thank you. Mr. Urban, Mr. Woodward, Mr. Lott, if you can come up. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Okay, guys, are you ready? 1, 2, 3. We're gonna do one more. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
From Pilot View, Emily Pugmire, special programs teacher. Emily here. Oh. Okay. From Rock Springs Junior High, Brenna Franklin, library media specialist teacher. Dylan Karagenis, PE teacher. Corey Bell, activities secretary. Colleen Evans, special education paraprofessional. For patients, EL paraprofessional. If you are here, please come up. Mr. Urban, Mr. Woodward, and Mr. Lott.
Ready? 1, 2, 3. And one more. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Rock Springs High School, Amber Green, English teacher. Jamie Wiseman, athletic trainer. Andy Bodenhagen, activity or attendance secretary. Caddy Santa Maria Johnson, EL paraprofessional. Stephanie Manning, paraprofessional. Shonda Macy, special education paraprofessional, and childcare assistant. If you're here, please come up and get your certificate. And your administrators. Thank you so much.
Go. Ready? 1, 2, 3. And one more. 1, 2, 3.
Sage Elementary, Ashley Barnum, first grade teacher. Annette Tanner, art teacher at Sage and Desert View. So Mrs. Punches, Mr. Schenkel, and Mrs. Blake, if you could come up.
Ready? 1, 2, 3. One more. 1, 2, 3. Thank you, guys.
Stagecoach Elementary, Amanda Bryant, special education teacher, Lori Fiegler, kindergarten teacher, Jamie Lovato, district nurse. If you're here, please come up. Mrs. Palacios and Mr. Schenkel.
Are we ready? 1, 2, 3. One more. 1, 2, 3. Thank you, guys.
From the Transportation Department, Steve Rosanico, bus driver Farson Eden, Garth Wadsworth, bus driver. Oh, you want to come in and get him for him? Thank you. Okay. Walnut and North Park, Jamie Morgan, art teacher. So Mrs. Supis and Mr. Groove.
Okay, guys, ready? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2.
That concludes our recognition for tonight. Thank you.
Excuse me. Ms. Murray, if you would proceed with roll call, please. Well, she's not here.
Mrs. Cochran? Here. Mrs. Schumacher? Present. Mrs. Summers? Here. Mrs. Thompson? Here. Mrs. Wood? Here. Mr. Wright? Chair Jellicoe?
Present. We do have a quorum. I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda with the addendum items. It's been moved by Mr. Wright. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Wood. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed by the same sign. Motion passes. We'll now suspend the board meeting and open the public hearing. Is there a motion? It's been moved by Mrs. Wood. Is there a second?
Second.
Mrs. Summers, is it a second? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed by the same sign. Motion passes. We are now in the public hearing to amend the 2023-2024 budget. Mr. Duncan.
Yes, very good, thank you. Is this on, Zach? So the item before you is to increase the budget in the general fund and to set up the spending plan for those funds. On the revenue side, the increase is about 1.67 million, and that is broken out to a downward adjustment of some 6 mil and 25 mil tax collection estimates. There's an upward revision for the estimated entitlement amount from the State Foundation Program funding worksheet, and also an increase in the revised special education reimbursement. And all of these were due to the finalized state reports the last part of August. On the expenditure side, would you be kind enough to pull up that attachment for me, please, Zach? Thank you. On the expenditure side, there is an amount allocated for the hire of the new superintendent of schools, and that's in the event that somebody could be brought on board in this fiscal year rather than waiting to next fiscal year. So if we want to provide some on-the-job training, if you will, there are funds set aside to do that. There's another item for the search and hire for the chief financial officer position, and also for contingencies for the operation of the district. There's an additional $12,000 set aside for the search for the superintendent, and that covers the contract with the Wyoming School Boards Association and also some travel and lodging money so we can bring in the candidates during the interview process. There's $150,000 allocated to the cab interior painting and the possible door replacement. And this item will come up for approval later on in the board meeting. There's an item for transportation. These are fairly good size. There's an amount set aside for the new proposed salary schedule. And in the first line item, the 3510s, those would be for the route drivers, mechanics, and the coordinators. There's also an amount set aside for the purchase of 2 propane buses. And normally these would be let out for a lease instead of purchasing outright because we can only get reimbursed a fifth of that purchase over the 5 years. But in this case, these 2 buses, they're being cost shared by an EPA grant. And the requirements of the grant are that they have to be purchased outright. They cannot be leased. So that's why there's purchase money in there for those. There's also an amount set aside for the salary schedule for the over-the-road drivers and also the repair of 2 buses. And those will come up for board review later on in the meeting as well. And on a side note, these 2 transportation line items, so the 4 buses and the transportation salary schedule, these are 100% reimbursed by the state. Any questions so far?
Any questions? Okay, please proceed.
Okay, thank you. Zach, would you be kind enough to pull up the number B for me, please? Thank you. This is the proposed transportation salary schedule for the components that I spoke of earlier. And the purpose of this is to retain and recruit the drivers, mechanics, and coordinators. And thank you for the numbers, but currently there's 1 full-time position open and 11 part-time positions open. So we're hoping that this will help recruit and fill some of those open positions. This is similar to the action that was taken last October in 2021, where we also had a new transportation salary schedule during the course of the year. And this too, again, is a reimbursable transportation expense. Can I stand for any questions?
Any questions? I don't see any.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we'll proceed with the public comment on the public hearing. So just on those 2 items, is there any public comment in person? We have nothing written. Is there any public comment in person on those 2 items, the budget hearing? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing and reconvene the board meeting.
So moved.
It's been moved by Mrs. Summers. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Wright. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed by the same sign. Motion passes. Number 8, We'll now have a discussion on the hiring process for the superintendent of schools. Anyone want to start? I believe you all received the proposal that Wyoming School Boards Association sent us. I think for the public's interest, they should know that this is if we decide to, and it's not really a contract because it's under the $25,000 limit that we need for a contract, but basically we would consult with the Wyoming School Boards Association. They would do a great deal of the work through their national network. So it'll be in-state as well as a national search for our superintendent of schools. We had a workshop tonight to revise our job description. That will go out in the job description. Will go out with the posting of the position. And so discussion. Anyone?
Chair Jellicoe,
Mr. Wright.
I'll just spend a second to reiterate some things that you've said based off of comments and some emails that I've got. So I think it's important to point out that it's a national search. So we're open to applicants outside the district, the state. We're also open to those within. But I think the point is that we're looking for the best candidate, no matter where they might be. I also think that the workshop before the meeting tonight was very helpful. And I think I can speak for the board that we all came to a consensus and agreed upon the language that was added to the job description. And there's a lot of good information in there. And we're really looking for somebody who works well, creates a positive climate, creates the best atmosphere for our students, works well with members of the community, and just has very clear goals, very high expectations, and is willing to be flexible and amenable to the thoughts and discussions that come up during the board meetings and public comments.
Thank you. Further
Madam
discussion. Mrs. Thompson.
I just want to kind of give the public a little insight on the process that we're using. So we're reviewing the Wyoming School Boards Association search services. That's what we have been reviewing, WSBA for short. In here, it basically states that they will help us with the advertising, getting the information out there nationwide, but that this board will be the director. We will look at the applications, we will decide who moves on to the next interview process, and so on and so forth. So this school board is in control of the process. They're just facilitating it for us. They've done it for other districts across Wyoming. I've spoken to a couple of board members that I know in other districts, and they have been satisfied with the process, and they were satisfied with the quality of candidates that they received. So hearing information like that from other board members who have gone through this process made me feel a little bit more comfortable with choosing WSBA to kind of do that search for us. As you can imagine, it's going to be a nationwide search. So there's going to be a lot of work on the back end that they're going to be doing for us, and we're hoping for some really good results.
Thank you. Further discussion.
Madam Chair.
Mrs. Summers.
I had some hesitancy before reading WSBA's proposal. Some of the things that I do like in their search proposal, if we don't find a suitable candidate, so there's not a ton of pressure to find a suitable candidate within this year. If we don't find a suitable candidate that is a match for the district, they will help us find an interim superintendent to work in that position until we are able to find a suitable candidate. That makes me feel a little more comfortable. We could be a bit late in the hiring process for a superintendent. Prime hiring time, I think, as you've stated, is February timeline, January, February. So I like some of that assurance that we can have a backup plan in case we are unable to find the right match for our district, you know, in a kind of short time frame.
Thank you. Further discussion? I want to assure the public that when we get to the interview stage, that we do intend to have a community forum with each of the candidates, probably here in this room, so that there'll be an opportunity to meet with the candidates, at least the finalists, and we will have a representative staff members, so there will be a staff forum and lunch with the administrative staff as we set up an interview schedule, a possible interview schedule. So I do want to assure the public that they will have an opportunity to meet with the superintendent or the candidates, the final candidates, I should say, and we'll be advertising those dates and stuff as the time becomes more appropriate. Any other comments? Again, we do hope prime hiring season for all certified staff, for that matter, teachers and administration, is usually February and March. We hope to have the postings, I think the posting, we're looking at posting about end of November and working with the School Boards Association to get that posting out. And then applications would be due about the middle of January. That's the schedule that we're trying to adhere to. So if it does seem a little bit pushed, it is, but we're confident that they'll be able to get the information out across the country through their association partners. And it's not, they do this often, sometimes 5 or 6 superintendents a year. We are fortunate this year, there are not 5 or 6 superintendents that we know of that are leaving. So they probably will not be as taxed as sometimes they are. So we're fortunate in that way. But they have been very responsive. When I reached out for them for some information this past week, they've been very responsive to our questions. And if we do have questions, if you please just contact me and we will get those shipped off to them and get their answers. Any further discussion?
Sorry, Chair Jellicoe, one more thing.
Okay,
I just
Mr.
thought
Wright.
it'd be important for the public to know that we as a board have identified that we'll be having a board workshop in December to really look over our strategic planning. At that point, we'll have held all the meetings throughout the district, and we as a board want to go through those and identify the most important issues that the district is facing and use those in our hiring process for a new superintendent to make sure that that superintendent is really focused on the district, on the direction that we want to take the district moving forward. And that's incorporating all of the comments that we've received.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Then I would entertain a motion that we consult with the Wyoming School Boards Association to work through this superintendent search.
So moved.
It's been moved by Mrs. Summers. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Thompson. Just for clarification, the cost of the search, just for clarity and transparency, is $6,500. So it's very reasonable for a search of this magnitude. So, any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed by the same sign? Motion passes. I would also now entertain a motion that we make the changes that we discussed during the workshop on the job description. And I'd entertain a motion to, since that is a policy, we are adopting a policy, the changes to that policy. It's CBA, I believe, is it CBA? Yes. Okay, it's policy CBA, and we did make some changes to that so that we can get that job description to School Boards Association to go out with the information. Is there a motion? It's been moved by Mrs. Cochran. Second? Second by Mr. Wright. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed by the same sign? Motion passes. So I believe we have those two Yes, if we could have copies for each of the trustees for that. Thank you. Okay. Moving on to item number 9, the superintendent reports. A, need for a new Rock Springs High School update. Mr. Celeroli.
Madam Chair, members of the board, superintendent. Received an email earlier today from Mrs. McGovern asking me to go over some clarifying questions. So if you will, I'm just going to go through the questions that apparently have come through, excuse me, in her email, and kind of give everybody a sense of what means what in my world as far as dealing with buildings. And also throw some numbers and give you a little bit of what we did at the presentation. The presentation that Ms. McGovern and I drove to the other day, we 4 hours down there, 4 hours back, and we got 10 minutes to make our case. So it was strictly facts and numbers and nothing else.
That's how it is with the legislature.
Yeah, they don't have much time for you. So which was another reason, because one of the things was, about the kids coming down and the parents coming down. Having the kids come down and the parents come down, even though they have a time limitation, it still allows you more people to get up and make your case. And they actually will not time the kids. And they listen to the kids. The kids actually carry more weight than than most of the adults do. The kids go up there and they actually tell them what they face every day. And so the legislators, they actually got a kick out of it. And then the other thing that was done strategically was the legislators will never turn down pamphlets or printed information that kids give them. But if we try to give it to them, they'll say, no, thanks, we have enough paperwork. So the kids did give everybody on the select committee photos with short briefs as to what those photos were indicating and those, little details. Okay, question number 1 was, what does shovel-ready mean? Okay, shovel-ready in my world means you own everything. You're ready to finish the design. You're at 95% design or close to it, and you're ready to go out to bid. In this case, we've owned that property. We've had that property since 2008. We have had 95% plans up to 52% of what the actual build-out is. So when we built this satellite school, we actually planned on doing a full comprehensive high school. So it has all of the infrastructure. So we don't have to go back and we don't have to run new storm sewers. We don't have to run new sewer lines. We don't have to run our water connections. Everything has been sized for the new building. And it is a full build out of that building. One of the other comments was in here was that, let me go right down the list. So that's kind of what we mean by shovel ready. Everything is ready to go. We just need, if you had plans for the entire building and they had been sitting on a shelf, they would still be required, if they're more than 3 years old, they'd still be required to go through an extensive plan review through IBC. So everything has to be code compliant because the codes change every 3 years. So that would occur no matter what. So to me, when we talk about shovel ready, especially to this project, we are ready to go. Like I said, and we brought these numbers up to select committee. We have designed 52% of the building. We have already built 18% of the final build out. So that's kind of where we're at. That's in definition for this project, shovel ready. What will happen to the current building? I've been asked this question so many times. The district cannot keep the building. Okay, we already have well over 130,000 square feet of additional building space. We have auxiliary gyms. We have the swimming pool area. These are considered enhancements. Okay, enhancements as far as the state of Wyoming is concerned is anything that is not what they consider allowable square footage at design. Okay, allowable square footage is based on capacity. They do a study. When they figure out which date the school is going to be opened, 5 years beyond that projected date, they have a capacity number that they use a rubric for, and that drives out your allowable square footage. So with that allowable square footage, that determines your auditorium size. It determines how many gyms you'll get, all of the other ancillary items that go with that building. Your custodial closets, things like that. So that's your allowable square footage. Now, once they come out with, in this case, just say, because the numbers are floating around, this isn't gospel, it's not carved in stone, but just to have a number to deal with. Based on projections, if we received permission to build a 240,000 square foot building, okay, 240,000 square foot would be for a student population of roughly 1,500 to 1,600 kids, okay? So you're gonna get everything, you're gonna get an auditorium that's designed for that many kids. You're gonna get all of your cafeteria space, your kitchen space. Everything is based on those numbers. If we want more, if we want bigger classrooms, and this has happened in this district where when times were good and things were flush and we had a lot of money, Pilot Butte, we said, hey, you know what? We'll build the gym, take the money that you're giving us for the school and build bigger classrooms. And that's what we did. Now I'm going to come back to that because there was a question about enhancements. Okay, so when times were good and we filled up those classrooms, we were getting paid for square footage for major maintenance. The gym is under rec board dollars. It is to be maintained with rec board dollars. Anything that is considered an enhancement, the district only gets 10% of its funding. So just say if I get $3 million a year for major maintenance, $300,000 of 10% of that can go towards the upkeep maintenance of our enhancements. Only after my 5-year plan review has been approved of by the board and then by the state. So what that means is if the state reviews my plan and they look at it and say, you know what, you're not really handling all of your 2s and 3s. You know, if you have a 1, you're not handling those. So no, you cannot use your 10% until you get these things taken care of. That's how that's governed. As to what Kelly and I did in Cheyenne last week, there's a process, and this process was approved on November 1st. I have the paperwork here that shows, because it also ties into a comment that Mr. Vincent left before he left. He had made a comment that now we've caught up to Campbell County. There is no catching up. Okay, what Campbell County did was they went in, they applied, they put in their information to a new section that was just approved November 1st of this year. That is Chapter 3, Section 8, Emergency Rules for Funding. That gives the Select Committee and the JAC the authority to jump a school that is down lower in the list to number 1. Okay, that's all that does. Now, Campbell County, they just got their paperwork in and they've been kind of schmoozing the system. We didn't put it in because honestly, we have been on the board since 2012. I have documentation in AIM, which is a state site. It's their site that I do all my approvals with. Back in 2012, it says in there, the district had applied for a new school under the capacity and needs. 2012. Legislative session 2014, we were approved for money to do our planning. Now, if we weren't in there, we wouldn't have got the money. Okay, so we were in there in 2012. 2014, they gave us money to do planning. That was our first Mercer. The first Mercer had the original master plan, which included a complete build out of the school. Went to state legislation, they pared it down to 118,000 square feet. From there on, everybody knows it went through another Mercer, then another Mercer, and we end up with 44,500. We end up with 43,385 square feet. So when they're talking about, when people are referencing, what did we do there? We still have to go through the process. Remember I said 3.8 is what they refer to. That wasn't approved till November 1st. So we had to get to the legislative session, the select committee, in order to make them aware. So I'm sure that the school facilities committee turned in the paperwork, but nothing says I love you like being there. Okay, and that's why we went down there. We went down there with the kids to make our case, to say, hey, we have an interest here, and we have been on the board. And had we have not gone down there, had the kids not gone down there, we would never have heard Senator Rothfuss say, hey, you know what? We've been dealing with this Rock Springs High School for over 10 years. So when you have someone there on those committees, it was Rothfuss. It was, even though he wasn't there, he was online. Harshman. Those guys know. We have been dealing with this since 2012. I have been dealing with it since 2014. That's how long I've been here. So you have to go through the process. You have to make the steps. That's why we were there. We went down to the School Facilities Commission. Anybody can just send their stuff in, but you have to go there. I've been doing this a long time, and for 20 years, like, you guys have heard me say it over and over and over. Since COVID, I have gone to every single School Facilities Committee meeting, because if you're not there, no one defends you. No one sticks up for you. No one fights for your cause. That's what we were doing down there. What did we pay for design prior to this? And it's crazy to think about that we would pay $8.4 million to design again. That's an interesting question and statement, because the average architecture fee to build us anything anymore is 8 to 10%. So if you're projecting $160 million for a project, 10%, $16 million. We've already paid, we were allocated $4.1 million. In the design of the first design, 118,000 square feet, and then a second design of the 44,000 square feet, we spent $3.95 million. So when that $8 million came up as a component level project, component level projects are there so that major maintenance, you can't take $8 million of major maintenance and fix something. So they came out with component level spending. Back in the old days when I first started, it was called minor capital. Then it went to component level spending. That $8 million is to do a major repair up at the high school that would require me to shut the high school down. So I had made the comment, why would I take $8 million and I still have to shut the school down to do a repair? Where am I going to put the kids? Can I allow it? Can I put that toward design? Senator Rothfuss, he basically said, I was going to ask you that same question. Why would we give you $8 million to do a component level repair up at the high school when you've already spent $4 million, you were allocated $4 million, you spent almost $4 million, another $8 million in my mind, simple math, around things, to make it easy. There's $12 million. We're almost there to a full design. That's when I gave them the numbers. We spent $3.9 million designing 52% of what we need. We built 18% of what we need. What's left over, I'm not confident that it's going to cost, or I don't believe that it's going to cost another $8 million. But I had a follow-up phone call that Friday evening with Jerry Vincent. He says, hey, should we take that $8 million away or pare it down? I said, heck no. We can always give you something back, but it's going to play hell trying to get something, if we have to make up more money. So we kept the $8.4 million. So that's what the $8.4 million is. If you add that plus what we were allocated, we're $12 million. That should bring you close to design of a $150 million school. Okay? Any questions on how that $8 million rolled out? But that's how the cost of things are out of sight. I mean, 10% of a building, and sometimes that doesn't include all of the soft costs. Okay? What are enhancements? Determine how are enhancements determined, and how's the money allowed for them, and what does this amount to? Or why does the number fluctuate? Okay, let's go back to the classroom size that I gave as an example. In the past, nobody thinks that we're going to have bad times. Okay, everybody hopes that we're not going to have bad times. But when times are good, we use our money in a way that the community asked us to. The community asked previous administrators to build larger gyms. We all love our gyms, right? I've learned in Wyoming, been in Wyoming now most of my life, and I learned that if you take a gym away, you might as well pack your bags and get out of town, because gyms are more sacred than anything else that we have. Okay? So what we did was, when we had the money, we built bigger gyms. We built good gyms. We put gyms in, auxiliary gyms with maple floors. Who does that? We do. We took the money and we put it into classrooms to make larger size classrooms. Here's where that goes against you. Those classroom sizes, if you have a down drop in capacity, Because classroom sizes are figured on square foot per student, now you have excess square feet. So if you don't have 27 kids in a class or 25 kids in a class, it doesn't shake out the larger classroom. So for me, on my major maintenance side, that's when the numbers go down. If we fill them up or get slightly overcrowded, numbers come back up financially for major maintenance. That's how enhancements work. Now, when we have a gym is a gym is a gym. Okay, we have auxiliary gyms throughout town. Those are paid for by rec mill dollars. Once you pay for them from an outside source, that outside source is obligated to pay for them from here on after. That is actually written in the rules of School Facilities Commission. Before, if everybody here agrees that we're gonna add another wing on someplace and it's gonna be an enhancement, I would have to go before the School Facilities Commission to get their approval. And as part of that approval, I would have to show financial responsibility into the future. How is this gonna be funded? You look at our gyms. Our gyms are pretty easy because they're square boxes, right? They have their own roof line most of the time. So that roof line, everything that's in that box is the responsibility of the rec board. Or 10% if I take care of business. That's how it works. So that's why it fluctuates. Our school, my major maintenance fluctuates the same way. Even if I'm dead on with all of my numbers, and then we have a decrease in students, just because I have a building that's 79,000 square feet, if it's not 85 to 90% capacity, my funding for that building goes down. They do not pay me. You'll hear some folks that are in politics that don't even understand. They tell, oh no, you get 2.2% replacement value, cost CRV, cost replacement value. I only get that if the student count is up. If the student count is up, yeah, I still get CRV, but it's less per square foot. It's less square footage because remember that there's that formula. However many kids I have still drives out allowable square footage. That's not just for building, that is forever. So if it drops, population drops, I get less money, irregardless of the fact I've got 79,000 square feet in a building. In the high school's case, 325,000 square feet in a building. So if we were to receive grant or funding to build a new school, now you know why. We can't keep 325,000 square feet. How would we pay for it? And just so you know, there is state statute that requires districts to go through certain steps. We just can't say, okay, we can't, whether it's a new board, whoever, we can't just say, okay, we're gonna do this with the building. No, you can't do that. Again, you have to go back to the School Facilities Commission. State statutes regulate what you can and cannot do. They also regulate what you can and how you can do it with buildings that are 1979, July of 1979 or older, July of 1979 or newer. Because they were financed differently as far as the state is concerned. So those funds have to be managed a different way. I talked about Jerry Vincent saying about, Campbell County come in, there was comments that we came in at the 11th hour. Honestly, we haven't been on the 11th hour, unless you consider 2012 the 11th hour. We have been there year after year after year with the same claims. We get beat down because of legislators. There's a lot of strength on the eastern part of the state, and anybody who says otherwise is kidding themselves. It's a tough battle. And when you get down to where you're going to get the funding and someone who is a prominent person on those JACs miscommunicates something, you're shot down. I mean, there's not a whole lot you can do about it. You can prepare for a lot of things, but you can't take, when people get up there and say something that is not true and you can't be there because we got snowed out, there's not a whole lot we can do about it. But right now, this is why we tell everybody, you have to get a hold of your legislators because we got to make our voice heard. And I know that it's working because when Jerry Vincent was there, he would tell me, hey, the governor's office is calling me up. Man, you folks from Rock Springs are just, making life hard for me. I said, well, Jerry's was an advocate for Rock Springs. but he was tired of getting constant calls from the governor's office because of folks from Rock Springs. I say, too bad. I mean, I get emails all the time from folks, and that's just the way it is. You know, it's part of the job. With Jerry, you know, a lot of things I have to tell you. I really like Jerry Vincent. I think Jerry Vincent was for Rock Springs. He was a personable guy. But Jerry was new to the state, and Jerry did not understand how to read. There's an accounting system that I have to work with, and it's It's the AIM accounting system that the state have. I have all my projects in there, everything. And up until the last minute, he didn't even know how much money we spent on design of the school that we have the plans for. He had no idea how much of the square footage that we've already had designed, how much. He was just unfamiliar with how to navigate AIM. And in his defense, he hasn't been here for a year, and he's got 48 districts. Another 48 districts, there's how many schools throughout those districts. You would have to know how to navigate every single one of those schools. I just have to deal with 50 buildings in our district. So I can't imagine some of the other districts. So the bad news is Jerry's gone. The good news is Jerry's gone, because we now have Dale McComey. Dale McComey is Rock Springs friendly. He is an intelligent person. He used to run the YDOT for many years. Then he became the school facilities director. He was the school facilities director prior to Jerry Vincent. The governor asked him to come back and try to sort through all this stuff. One of the big hangups that they're having is we need a new school. Campbell County needs a new school. And at some point, Laramie 1, which is Cheyenne, will need a new school. You're talking, almost $500 million in new schools that need to be built. I know we have a legislator here, but honestly, they should have been, you hear about the rainy day fund. Well, it's raining. I was told years ago when I first started working, an old man told me, he says, son, save for a rainy day and I guarantee you'll have one. Well, let's get preventive. Let's get proactive on this stuff so that that these schools are getting older. We have a new school where, it's got the issues that are in that school can be taken care of. But again, like I tell legislators, what do we do with the kids? It requires shutting the building down and relocating kids. Very difficult to operate under those conditions. And then when you're all done, now you'd have a building that's 60 years old on the outside. So, and you still landlocked, you still have only 22 acres. It just doesn't make sense to work that site over and over and over. Dale McComey, his daughters graduated from Rock Springs High. He lived here a good portion of the time that he was in as YDOT. So he is familiar with us. I've worked really well with Dale McComey through the years, and he is aware of the situation. Dale he actually got in School Facilities Commission probably around 2014, same year that I came here. So he and I are kind of real familiar with the asking for the new school and the process that we're going through. So hopefully that will be a huge benefit to us. But, it's politics. And politics is tough. You corner a politician and he'll tell you everything that you want to hear. And unfortunately, it's not just up to that one person. And we have to make our message known. We have to get down there. There's so many things that we have to do on our end. But I can tell you, we're not late to the game. And this isn't, we didn't wait till the 11th hour. This has been going on for a very, very long time. If anybody has any questions, if Superintendent, I think I went through all of these questions. I don't know what else, if somebody else, if there's questions that somebody needs, I'd be more than happy to
Trustees, any
answer.
questions?
Did I answer?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Nobody here has got any questions, so,
Thank you.
okay.
Moving forward, communications and correspondence or the public comment. If a member of the public initiates specific complaints or charges against an employee in order to protect the employee's rights to privacy and due process, the board will only hear those complaints or charges in closed session. The board encourages concerned individuals to file complaints using the appropriate district complaint procedure and appropriate forms, which can be obtained from the district's website. As per policies B, DDH, and KD, Please limit your comments to the board to one time. If your comments have been previously submitted in writing, please refrain from addressing the board a second time. Written comments will be posted to the agenda in the written public comment section below. Written public comments must be received by 1:00 PM on the day of the board meeting and will be available for the public and trustees to view, but will not be read loud at the board meeting. Policies B, D, D, H, and KD continue to state, questions asked by the public shall, when possible, be answered immediately by the chairman or referred to staff members present for reply. Questions requiring investigation shall be referred to the board or administrative staff for consideration and later response. We did have a couple of written comments, and they are in the agenda on the website. So is there any in-person public comment?
Good evening, members of the board, Chairman Jellicoe, Superintendent McGovern, JT Larson, representative from District 17. Just wanted to say that I am in support of a new school for Rock Springs, and we'll continue to fight for that as we move through the legislative process. And just one note for the public, make sure you reach out to not only the legislators here locally, but the Joint Appropriations Committee legislators, because they are really the decision makers when it comes to what we do with our budget, and they're very guarding of the budget. So make sure that you reach out to them. And if you have any questions, just reach out to me and I'll make sure you get the answers you need. So thanks.
Thank you. Further public comment?
Hello, I'm Natalie Powell, co-chair of the Rock Springs High School Parent Involvement Team. I'm here to give our monthly PIT update. During our November parent meeting, Mr. Supas gave an update on the meetings in Cheyenne lobbying for funding for a replacement high school. We understand that the School Facilities Commission will visit Rock Springs in May 2024 to tour the high school and have stakeholder meetings. While this is encouraging progress, there is a concern among the parent group that Campbell County seems to be further along in the process, as they had the School Facilities Commission tour their school in June. We wonder why they haven't come to Rock Springs and toured our facilities sooner. Thunder Basin opened in 2017, and Campbell County appears to be getting a replacement school in the next few years. They will have built 2 schools while we are still lobbying for funds for one. We have been told that we lost funding a few years ago, but the progress feels stagnant. As a parent involvement team, we collected 225 signatures on our letter advocating for a replacement high school. We appreciate everyone who took the time to show their support by signing our letter. We were able to export 9 pages of names that were sent along with our letter to Sweetwater County legislators, the Select Committee on School Facilities, Joint Appropriations Committee, School Facilities Commission, Superintendent Degenfelder, and Governor Gordon. We hope we were able to make a small difference. We will continue to help advocate for our kids, our teachers, and our community. We received several replies from officials thanking us for our efforts. Also, during our November meeting, we got an update on the school improvement plan for the high school, and we'll await further updates in our December meeting from the SIP team meeting with the WDE that was supposed to happen today. Mr. Supas provided answers to the questions we had asked about whether Rock Springs High School had been on support before, what happens if we don't meet state benchmarks, and how long the high school can be on support. During the PIT meeting, we also discussed the date for a future parent training for parents interested in joining the parent volunteer team. This training will take place on November 16th from 6 to 7 p.m. in the high school library. Mr. Supas shared that he would love to get parents in the building. I was at the last parent training and look forward to being in the school helping out however I can. We will continue to brainstorm additional ways parents can volunteer and be involved in their kids' high school experience, as we believe it will contribute to positive academic outcomes. The PIT has heard from several parents and community members that there should be parent and community representation in the selection process for a new superintendent, and we thank Mrs. McGovern for all of her work. As always, we welcome thoughts and ideas by joining the PIT team meeting on December 4th at 6 p.m. at the main campus library, or by emailing us at rshspit307@gmail.com. Thank you.
Thank you. Further public comment?
Good evening, Chair Jellicoe. My name is Josh Sorensen. I'm just happy to be here. I want to talk about the search for superintendent. First of all, I want to thank Mr. McGovern for all you've done. But I do want to, I look at things from a business perspective, and I don't see any reason why we would only spend $6,500 to find a superintendent. We're talking about the leader of our school district, and we're going to spend $6,500. There's times to save money, but this isn't the time. I think we need to you guys need to relook at that. I did a quick search, just Googling here. Most schools are spending around $50,000 to find a superintendent. And we're talking about someone that makes around $200,000 a year. That's pretty common to pay a quarter of that salary to find that right person. I do have questions, concerns about this Wyoming School Board Association. Is it a public entity or a private entity? Do you have an answer to that?
It is a public nonprofit.
Okay. Public nonprofits don't know how to recruit well.
They have searched a number of superintendents throughout the state over the years. We have a list of a number of them. They have national connections. They belong to a National Superintendent Search Association. So their reach is far, far and wide.
But if their fee's only $6,500, it doesn't make any sense.
Because it's a service because we are a member of the organization as well. So we pay dues to the organization as well.
Still, I would suggest that we are underspending on this. And I think it's a little bit embarrassing, actually. We should put more effort into this. My personal opinion, we're at a crossroads here. I think it's important we take a different direction. That's sentiment I get from everybody in the school district, the people I talk to, parents and such. If our graduation rates are horrible, our test scores are bad, our teacher retention is bad. And if we hire someone on the same path we're already on, then that's just a failure. So I think the school board needs to really look at finding someone that's from outside that has different perspective so we can try to get those graduation rates up. I do appreciate your time.
Thank you. Further public comment?
Good evening, Board, Superintendent Chairman. My name is David Stoffer, a community member. I just would like some clarification a little bit on, at the meetings in Cheyenne that I attended, the committee asked the superintendent how we were going to fund the enhancements, and she mentioned that it would be through the rec board. I don't really understand that process, so I was wondering if we could get some clarification on, first of all, do we know how much the enhancements are going to cost? And number two, have we actually talked to the rec board? Has there been any communication? Do we know that if we get the money from the state, that we actually do have the funding for the enhancements? My concern is that we get the funding from the state and then we don't have our funding in place on how we take care of those enhancements, and then we're forced to have a building that doesn't really fit what we're trying to accomplish here. So if we could just get some clarification on how that process works as far as getting the funding for the enhancements would be really appreciated. Thank you.
Is that something you want to address now, or? Superintendent McGovern?
Sure. Chair Jellicoe, members of the community, I'm very cautious in responding to this because first of all, I don't want to get too far ahead of the game. We have a long road to go down before we have ever secured the funding for a new Rock Springs High School. We very much need the building, but there's important steps that we need to do as a district. And so Dan talked a lot about advocating down in Cheyenne. One of the things that's available for you is if you go to our district website, on the homepage, it has all of the legislators' contact information, and it's very important that you reach them. Not only do we have the Joint Appropriations Committee, but it's very important that we go through all of the other groups before we even get there. The School Facilities Commission, the Select Committee on School Facilities, the Joint Appropriation, and then having advocacy along the way. Enhancements, as Dan mentioned, they fluctuate, the amount, and it fluctuates with the enrollment of the district. So to be able to say that we need this much money from the rec board would be very arbitrary, and it would not be in the best interest of the district. However, if we got to the point, which I very much hope that we do, and that we will do everything that we can in order to secure a new Rock Springs High School that we need greatly. But when that time comes, they would be able to tell us, this is the square footage that you're going to get for your building. It'll be based upon the enrollment at that time plus 5 years out. Then once that comes through, then you'll be able to say, okay, on these enhancements, do we want a larger gym? Do we want larger classrooms? What would they give us for the square footage for the auditorium? And then when that time comes available, then we go to the rec board. The rec board meets quarterly. They're available. That is an open meetings law. And the people that serve on the rec board, we have Matt Biter from the city. We have Scott Duncan, Mark Portillo, Cole Wright from our school board serves on there, and Leo Gray. So they are open for contact at any time. The budget for the rec board is available for anyone to view. And also one thing that's very important, the rec board also follows district policies. And so they make sure that we are fiscally responsible for the district. Any expenditures that Dan had mentioned has to be sustainable by the rec board. So at all times, there is an itemized list of the current and previous expenditures so that they are sustainable in the future. So if you're going to overextend now, you need to be very cautious, because if the money goes down, you've got to be able to maintain the upkeep. A perfect example of that is weight room equipment. Also taking care of the fields, the turf fields that we have. Those are very expensive items that we've purchased through the rec board. We would not be able to do that without the use of rec board funds. So with keeping this in mind, one of the things that our rec board, they are excellent with their money. We have Scott that oversees that. We're fortunate for that. He's our treasurer. But we keep in mind that the money that we have, that we hold tight on that. So when it comes time for those expenditures, that we're able to cover those. If not, there needs to be other funding sources that could go with that, that's allowed, that would be allowed by law, so that we're available to purchase those. So there's a lot of things before we go down that road. But if we want turf fields, if we want larger CTE classrooms, I've had a lot of teachers reach out to me about different things that they're interested in. We know security is going to be a very #1 priority for the school. So those are all things that we've got to keep in mind for that. But we know that that amount for enhancement can change over time. So if we get more ADMs, average daily membership for the district, that will help very much for the enhancements and the square footage that we would be allowed in the school. But your rec board members are available, and so any ideas are always welcome by them. They follow the same district procedures as our school board does. And again, their budget, and it's always open for public comment in their meetings. The next meeting, I believe, for the rec board, you pull up my phone real quick. I believe it is February, let me take a look. It is February 8th at 5 o'clock, and it's here at the CAB. So it is open and anyone is welcome to attend.
Thank you. Further public comment?
Thank you, Board. Thank you, Chair Jellicoe, and thank you, Kelly. My name is Dana Eddy. Some of you may have known I ran for school board last time, knowing that this process of selecting a new superintendent was going to be coming our way soon. So I want to encourage the board greatly to make sure you guys are making the right choice for our area. Being with one of the Matrona mines out in this area, it is very hard to get people to come to Wyoming. Okay, I've seen it in our industry. It's very difficult to get people to come here and then stay. So I encourage you guys, when you're making that selection, that you're being wise and mindful about where those folks are also coming from. I would also like to see more interaction from the board members. Some of you I don't ever hear from. I never hear you speak during the board meetings. So I really hope in that selection process, you guys are more engaged and able to ask questions of those candidates. Additionally, when it comes to the facilities, one thing I will state, I've traveled a lot with my children in sports. one thing we need to keep in mind, some of that money should be coming back to our community. We constantly go to Casper. We constantly go to Gillette. We constantly go to other places in our state. That money doesn't come back to our areas. So when we're looking at facilities, we should be looking at facilities that we can draw those kind of activities back to our area. State band, state concert band, I can't remember, symphonic band. It had been, I don't know, 10 years since we had hosted that event. That's crazy to me. We have one of the largest schools. We do have the largest school on this side of the state. We need to bring people west, not east all the time. Thank you for your time. Thank you for listening. Have a great night.
Thank you. Further public comment?
Good evening, Chair Jellicoe, Superintendent McGovern, members of the board. I was going to hand out the important dates for November, but November's already away from us. So I'm going to go ahead and hand out, but probably the biggest thing that we have going on, we're transitioning right now. So we have our first practices for basketball and wrestling coming up on the 20th of November. And then we have our first practice for boys swim. So we're already gone through almost this entire list by the time the board meeting hits. So I just wanted to share that with you. I want to thank everybody for their support from the community, from the parents, from the legislature, from facilities, everybody that is so strongly fighting for a replacement high school. I can't thank you enough, and that's on behalf of myself and my administrative team. So thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Further public comment? Further public comment? Seeing none, we'll move on to the treasurer's reports. Mrs. Summers.
For the general fund treasurer's report for the month of October 2023, beginning balance was $5,351,621.05. Revenues received during the month were $11,732,509.24. Interbank transfers total, interbank transfers. That does not look right. It looks different. Sorry. After interbank transfers, we ended up with a total of $11,786,065. Less the warrants written during the month of $9,287,656.76, and interbank transfers out totaling $11,750,000. Voided checks totaled $640, and the ending cash balance for the general fund treasurer's count was $8,581,745.96. The treasurer's report for the Head Start program. Beginning balance was $343,558.83. Deposits totaled $10,284.08. Warrants cleared $250,164.11. And the ending balance was $103,678.80. The treasurer's report for the school lunch program. Beginning balance was $734,433.44. Interest during the period of October 2023 totaled $1,052.06. The revenue received during the month was $81,770.14. Federal reimbursements in the amount of $105,584.20. The FFVP grant reimbursement totaled $833.93. Reimbursements to the general fund, there were none. And then bank transfers for the FFVP grant totaled $833.93 for an ending balance of $673,094.02.
Is there a motion to approve the treasurer's report for the general fund, Head Start, and school lunch? It's been moved by Mr. Wright. Second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Thompson. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed by the same sign. Motion passes. Moving on to the warrants. Mrs. Summers.
The district warrants, checks number 162998 through 163970 totaled the amount of $7,001,491.82. Net payroll numbers 129403 to 129434 totaled the amount of $48,053.64. Payroll numbers 789,389 to 791,266 in the amount of $4,328,630.14. Check number 4382 was a federal funds transfer to Impact Aid, totaled the amount of $36,065. Check number 3812504 was a general fund transfer in the amount of $2 million. Check number 3816369 was a general fund transfer in the amount of $3 million. Checks number 3824160, 3827883, and 3829697 were general fund transfers in totaling the amount of $3,500,000. Check number 3826746 was a general fund transfer totaling $1,200,000. Check number 3818461 was a general fund impact aid totaling the amount of $1,305,000. Check number 3816370, a transfer, rec board transfer, $170,000. Check number 1007 was an insurance fund, Relia Star Life Insurance Company, totaled $21,488.77, was a return of stop loss overpayment. Check number 1008 to the Sweetwater County School District Number 1 Insurance Fund Health Plan Fund, totaled the amount of $390,000. Check number 11-2023-01, Sweetwater County School District 1 Insurance Fund Retiree Account, $200,000. Check number 11-2023-02, to the Insurance Fund Retiree Sally Swan, totaled the amount of $666. Check number 1161, Head Start Nutrition General Fund, totaled $6,000. And check number 1162, Head Start Nutrition Federal Funds, totaled $3,739.94. That concludes the warrants.
Is there a motion to approve the district warrants and their release?
So moved.
It's been moved by Mrs. Thompson. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Cole, or Mr. Wright, excuse me. I want to declare conflicts on 3 warrants, 163324, 163359, and 163845.
Madam Chair, if I may,
Mrs. Thompson.
I also have a conflict on 00163674.
Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed by the same sign. Motion passes. The consent agenda. All matters listed under the consent agenda are matters about which the board has governing policies, implementation of which is delegated to the superintendent. They will be enacted in one motion in the order listed below. There will be no discussion of these items prior to the time the Board of Trustees votes on the motion, unless members of the board request specific items to be held and discussed separately and/or removed from this section. Motion to approve the consent agenda as presented. A, approval of the minutes from the October 9th, 2023 board workshop. B, approval of the minutes from the October 9th, 2023 regular meeting. C, approval of the minutes from the October 9th, 2023 executive session. D, approval of the minutes from the October 16th, 2023 special board meeting. E, approval of the minutes from the November 6th, 2023 special board meeting. F, approval of the minutes from the November 6th, 2023 executive session. G, finance, approval of the resolution to amend the 2023-2024 budget. H, curriculum, post approval of the purchase of a belt sander for CTE. I, facilities, approval to go out to bid for the interior painting of the trim, ductwork, doors, and possible door replacement in the central administration building. J, facilities, approval to go to bid for exterior doors at the Overland Elementary Early Childhood Education Program. K, finance, approval of the bid for bulk custodial supplies. L, nutrition services, approval of the purchase of fresh produce for the National School Lunch Program and fresh fruit and vegetables program. M, human resources, approval of the personnel recommendations, and that does include a couple of addendum items as well. Technology, approval of the renewal of file waive. O, transportation, approval of the purchase and call for bids for the financing of one Type C bus. P, this is an addendum item, transportation, approval for purchase of 2 new propane buses. Q, transportation, approval for the district transportation department to go out to bid to refurbish fleet buses. And that completes the consent agenda. So I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda with a exception of O, P, and Q. Is there a motion?
So moved.
It's been moved by Mrs. Summers. Is there a second? Second, Mrs. Cochran. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed by the same sign. Motion passes. Moving on to O, transportation, approval of the purchase and call for bids for the financing of one Type C bus. Is there a motion?
So moved.
It's been moved by Mrs. Thompson. Second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Summers. Discussion. Mrs. Thompson.
Madam Chair, I just wanted an explanation on the next 3 items because we are doing a lot of different things. So if Joe can just kind of explain to us on this one, and then we'll move on to the next 2, if that's okay.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Superintendent McGovern. So for O, this is a bus that we were approved for purchase last year. However, right now in our fleet, all of our buses are Bluebird buses. Our mechanics know how to work on them. All our parts, spare parts are all Bluebird. And this bus was a low bid for another type of bus that would have been an outlier. So at that point, I decided not to purchase the bus and wait and for a more a bid that was better off for us as a district. At that point, I didn't think it was a good time to buy that. And this bus is also, I want it to be a propane bus, and I'll talk about that later on. So it was a bus to purchase. It was an outlier, and it wouldn't have fit the district at all.
Okay. So any further discussion? Okay, then the motion is to pass O, transportation approval of the purchase and call for bids for the financing of one Type C bus. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed by the same sign. Motion passes. Okay, moving on to P, approval of purchase of 2 new propane buses. A motion?
So moved, Madam
It's
Chair.
been moved by Mrs. Thompson. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Summers. Discussion,
Madam Chair?
please.
I had some questions, so I'll just go ahead and answer those questions for you. One of the questions we had on the propane bus was, do we have any propane buses currently? Yes, we do. We currently have 2 propane buses, and we use them on routes every day. And they're also the 2 buses that shuttle from the high school to the satellite school and back. So they're ran all day. So we do have propane buses. Another question was, do we have a place to fill the buses? Yes, we do. We go out to Reliance. It's Freedom Oil Services. We have a contract with them for a year. They have a lot of room. And in fact, they're wanting to get more into propane. So they're actually building an area out there in I think it's the northwest corner. That's going to be big. It's going to have, they're getting new tanks, and they're going to have pumps. It's just like a fuel pump. The drivers can go out there and fill the buses up. So we go out there and fill them up. The good thing, well, let's get to the third one, because this is my favorite question. I saved it for last. And it gets to the heart of the best reason that we should switch to propane buses. Have we had any problems with these type of buses? For example, freezing up in the wintertime or overheating in the summertime? The answer to both of those questions are no. We have no problems in the summer with them at all. We've never had any mechanical problems with our propane buses. We've used them from the 2022, 2023 school year all year, and we used them for half of this 23, 24 school year. And we've had 0 mechanical issues with them. The manufacturer claims that they're good to 40 below for wintertime use. And so we put that to the test last winter. And if you guys recall last winter, our winter wasn't a good one. I had our drivers not plug those buses in. They did not plug those buses in all winter long. So we're not using the electricity. So that saved us money right there. They started every time. I never had a problem with our propane buses not starting. The price of propane, so Freedom charges us 95 cents over what they pay for. So they don't have their propane delivered. They actually go get it and bring it back. So they get it cheaper. So I've seen anywhere from $1.58 a gallon to $1.78 a gallon. And this last time we paid $1.75 a gallon. Diesel fuel per gallon, even buying it in bulk, usually is over $4 a gallon. We paid this last time, it was a good bid this last time, we paid $3.49 a gallon for it. Still well away from $1.58 or $1.75 a gallon for propane. They're great mechanically. They're cheap to maintain. We don't have all the after treatment. After treatment costs us a lot of money. We're never going to get away from diesel buses for activities, but for routes, buses, I am sold on propane buses. Less expensive to run, more reliable, cleaner air. The diesel bus is never going to meet the EPA standards for clean air emissions. Propane is already 90% over what the minimum EPA standard is for clean air. So it's a very clean air. It's great for the kids. You know, adolescents have a higher breathing rate, so they're breathing in that air. If they have asthma, they have issues with the diesel. So getting rid of a diesel bus for a route bus makes all the sense in the world to me. That's all I have. Any questions?
Any questions?
Madam Chair, no, thank you, Joe, for explaining all that in such detail. I thought if I had some questions, I'm sure the public would kind of want to know what we're doing too.
Right. I just love the diesel bus or the propane buses. They're out there great.
Thank you.
Mhm.
So we have a motion and a second to approve the purchase of 2 new propane buses. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed by the same sign. Motion passes. And finally, Q, approval for the District Transportation Department to go out to bid to refurbish fleet buses. Is there a motion?
So moved.
It's been moved by Mrs. Summers, second. Second by Mr. Wright. Okay. Do you have anything to add to that, Joe?
No, unless you guys have any questions.
So this basically, we replace the engine and the transmission so that they can accommodate the propane. Is that accurate?
Yeah, so, and Ms. Summers can attest to this, we have a unique weather system up in Farson. A lot of times it's 20 degrees cooler up there. I use cooler term loosely because it's freezing up there. So with all the after treatment, we have issues with buses freezing up there, and we don't have we don't have a garage up there, so they sit outside. So these are older buses that do not have the after treatment on them. It's for a D bus, I think it was like $227,000 to replace a bus, so like $454,000 for 2 buses. We can refurbish the older buses that will benefit us as a district. It'll benefit the state because it'll be less expensive. I don't have to wait for those buses to mile out. I just have to go out to bid to get them repaired. I've talked to the director at the state level, the WDE, People Transportation Director, 100% reimbursable. I don't have to do any paperwork. I just do it, and then they pay it. So it will cost about the price of 1 bus or less to get that done. It'll have a refurbished engine or remanufactured engine, which means it's a Cummins block, and then that's remanufactured to factory specs, and then everything else is brand new in it. Same with the transmission, and then they'll be painted. So it's beneficial for everybody all around to refurbish them rather than try and get 2 new buses.
Okay. Thank you. The motion and second is to approve the District Transportation Department to go out to bid to refurbish fleet buses. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed by the same sign. Motion passes. Item number 14 is American Education Week, so I'd ask Cheryl to come up from the Sweetwater Education Association, and we'll sign the proclamation. Cheryl?
Thank you.
Yeah, I was just going to read it. The proclamation reads, American Education Week proclamation, whereas public schools are the backbone of our democracy, providing young people with the tools they need to maintain our nation's precious values of freedom, civility, and equality. And whereas by equipping young Americans with both practical skills and broader intellectual abilities, schools give them hope for and access to a productive future. And whereas education employees, be they substitute educators, custodians, paraprofessionals, nutrition service providers, secretaries, maintenance, teachers, bus drivers, or other special providers, work tirelessly to serve our children and communities with care and professionalism. And whereas schools are community linchpins, bringing together adults and children educators and volunteers, business leaders, and elected officials in a common enterprise. Now, therefore, we do hereby proclaim the week of November 12th through the 18th, 2023 as American Education Week. Signed this 13th day of November, 2023. I have signed it. Cheryl has signed it as the Sweetwater Education Association President and Superintendent McGovern. And I want to thank the local businesses and stuff that are providing discounts and stuff as per an email that went out this afternoon to all staff. So hopefully that they can go out and enjoy dinner with a little bit of a discount. So congratulations to them. Thank you, Cheryl. Item number 15 is an early notification of retirements and notifications. Approval of a one-time early notice incentive to all certified staff or administrators. Is there a motion to approve? Oh, okay. Thank you. We need to approve that proclamation. So we're going to back up just a moment. And a motion to approve the American Education Week proclamation.
Oh, so
Moved by Mrs. Thompson, second. Mrs. Cochran, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed by the same sign. Motion passes. Okay, then we'll move on to number 15, which is the early notification of retirements and notifications. Approval of a one-time early notice incentive to all certified staff or administrators. Is there a motion?
So moved.
It's been moved by Mrs. Summers, second.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Thompson. Okay, again, we do this every year so that if people are considering leaving and do decide to leave, it gives us as much time as possible to search for and hire replacements. Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed by the same sign. Motion passes. Item number 16 is the sick leave payout. Approval of a one-time sick leave payout for certified staff. Motion? Is there a motion? It's motion by Mrs. Cochran, second.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Summers. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed by the same sign. Motion passes. Item number 17, in Human Resources, approval of the proposed transportation salary schedule.
So moved.
It's been moved by Mrs. Summers. Second.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Thompson. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed by the same sign. Motion passes. Item number 18, the 2023-2024 Overland Handbook. Approval of the Overland Elementary Early Childhood Education Program Handbook Update. Is there a motion?
So moved.
It's been moved by Mrs. Thompson. Is there a second? Second by Mrs. Cochran. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed by the same sign. Motion passes. General Board Business. 19A, approval of policy DJ, Purchasing Authority. B, approval of policy DJE, Single Source / Sole Source Purchasing. C, approval of policy DJ / DJE-R-1, Nutrition Services Purchasing Procedures. D, approval of policy DJE-R, Single Source, Sole Source Purchasing Form. E, approval of policy DJF, Purchasing Procedures. F, approval of policy FCA, Capitalization Policy. Is there a motion? Got it, I got it. Is there a motion?
So moved.
It's been moved by Mrs. Thompson. Is there a second?
Second?
Second by Mrs. Summers. Mrs. Aramosby, I understand you're going to address C, the nutrition services purchasing procedures.
Yes, thank you, Chair Jellicoe, Board of Trustees, Superintendent McGovern. So I spoke with Susan Benning at WDE. She's the accountant for the Nutrition Services Program. And while the numbers are correct in this purchasing policy, she did make some recommendations for it to change some of the language in it. So under the micro purchase portion of it, which is I believe, it says, what it should read is that a purchase equal to or less than, it can say $10,000, but she recommended that we change it. She didn't say recommended, but she said that we can change it to say $25,000 on that piece, based on the federal threshold established in the federal acquisition regulations, or the current set self-certified threshold per 2 CFR 200.320. The other section that she said she would recommend changing the wording on it would be purchases may be awarded without soliciting competitive quotes if the price is considered reasonable. And this is the part, it says that currently in our policy, but what she recommended that needs to be added is after it says reasonable, say based on research, experience, purchase history, or other information and documentation. And then the other one is that additionally, the SFA should distribute micro purchases equitably among qualified suppliers to the extent practicable. And right now our policy says must. So I just wanted to make you aware of those recommended changes from the Wyoming Department of Education.
Any questions? Any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So we have a motion and a second to approve A, B, C, D, E, and F. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed by the same sign. Motion passes. Item number 20 is good of the order. Anyone with anything good of the order?
Chair Jellicoe, I'd like to make a comment.
Mr. Wright?
So I know that several of us on the board, or all of us, have probably received feedback over time that some of the written comments or public comments or so forth aren't responded to during the meeting, and there's concerns that because of that, it's falling on deaf ears. I wanted to just ensure the community that your comments are heard. Oftentimes, comments either require further investigation, discussion among the board, follow-ups, what have you. But if the district, either the district responds, and we've seen that happen multiple times, or it's a point of discussion for the board. But I wanted to let the community know that our board has made the decision to hold more workshops so that we can have more effective communication and be on a more unified front. And to this point, everybody that was here left, but I did want to kind of address a few of the people that came up and made public comments. And so to Mr. Sorensen, Mr. Stauffer, to the students and all those who made the trip to Cheyenne, I just want to echo the appreciation that, we as a board made the call to have your support, the PIT, parent involvement team. Thanks for all your hard work and for your effort and dedication and, making your presence known and being there for us. We do appreciate that. Also, a follow-up to Mr. Stauffer, as Mrs. McGovern mentioned, the rec board meetings are open. We would love to see you there and have your input. And then to Mr. Sorensen, I wanted to make the comment that $6,500 for the superintendent search, first and foremost, that's a discounted rate. The regular rate is $13,000. On top of that, that's not including all the money that will go into bringing candidates in and going through the interview process and everything else. So while I can understand that there is some connection to the dollar spent and the quality of candidates that you receive, I do think this is a good option, and the board has been unified. I think one of the interesting things about this is the time crunch that we're under. That we're really, starting this process today, coming up with the job description. We have 1 week to do that. For applicants to then respond to this, they have to have their applications back by January 15th, with prime hiring time being February. It's really a quick turnaround. And we as a board decided that we wanted to really go through all of the strategic planning comments that have been received the last several months. We're going to have a workshop on that, as I mentioned, in December, but that we wanted to use that discussion and be unified on what we're looking for in a future superintendent. But I really do think the board is working hard with the time we've been given to make the best decision going forward. And to that end, to Mrs. Eddy's comment, I think we're fortunate that the board in various ways all has roots in Southwest Wyoming. And we very much understand retention in this area being a concern. We know that we're competing with the states around us for teacher retention on the various salaries paid and so forth. The district's already going above and beyond to try to do that. But I think it's been evident in a lot of the decisions that have been made the last year with the preschool, with ways that we've switched up PD and the climate surveys that have been given, and the decisions and changes that we're making based on that feedback. We really are focused on staff retention and keeping people in this area. And that will ring true for the future superintendent as well. I think it's a delicate balance to find somebody inside or outside the district who understands this area, who's dedicated to this area, still meets all the qualifications, and is focused on what we are as a board from the strategic planning process. So we're definitely dedicated. And more than anything, I just wanted to let you guys know that your comments don't fall on deaf ears. And oftentimes it's taken offline, but we definitely, the district either, if it's pertaining directly to them, they follow up on that and reach out to those affected, or we as a board are discussing it. So I just wanted to try to put that out there to help the public understand that we're definitely listening. Thanks.
Further good of the order? Mrs. Thompson.
I had a few items that I wanted to discuss. We've been pretty busy lately. I just wanted to publicly thank all of the students, parents, the pit crew, and that's what I'm calling them from now on. And then, of course, Chair Jellicoe, Superintendent McGovern, and Dan Celeroli for making the trip to Cheyenne and for pleading our case. Those students brought tears to my eyes. If you guys have not watched them, please do. They spoke so eloquently, and they just spoke from their hearts, and they told that big, scary legislative board what they thought and they represented our district so well. I was so proud of them. It was emotional for me just to see them fighting for what they believe in. So I'm proud of those students and wanted to publicly thank them for that. Another thing that I recently attended was the BOCES 5 2-day leadership training that our board did. For those of you who aren't aware, BOCES 5 encompasses 13 member districts across the state of Wyoming, and we are one member on that board. So it's kind of crazy to try to get us all together in one place at one time. And so some of the things that we were looking at, of course, is funding, which you'll hear just about everywhere we're struggling for funding. One of the main concerns is our CBRV ranch, which is a 24/7 facility. We need to update those cottages. And we also need to continue work on the main school building. The siding is, you can see holes in it. So that's our next project, trying to find that funding. We also own the old Roosevelt School in town, if you guys are familiar with that. And so trying to determine what to do with that building is also something that we are looking at, and that will directly impact our community with what we decide there. Another thing that I did is we met with Sweetwater BOCES at Head Start, and we toured the Head Start, the daycare, and the preschool facility. And another common theme was we're trying to find a way to find some funding. Former legislator, Senator Bernadine Kraft, she is really going above and beyond to try to come up with different ideas of the way that Sweetwater BOCES, a whole different BOCES group, can help us find some funding for those kids. So that's just some of the things that I've been doing as a liaison. And if you guys have any questions, I'll be happy to answer anything.
Further good of the order. I'd like to thank Eastside Elementary for their invitation to attend their Veterans Program last Thursday. I know Mrs. Searle was they had some veterans there. A staff member is a veteran, and they allowed students to ask questions. And I know Mrs. Searle was just a little nervous, but those students came through. They had some quality questions, and it was really interesting, and the responses were very interesting. So kudos to the Eastside Elementary kids. Further good of the order. Okay, then moving on to new business. A, Board Information Policy EFB-R, unpaid meal balances. Board Information B, Policy JHCE, Healthy and Wellness. And C, Board Information Policy JHCE and JHCE-R crossed out. D is the vacancy notice as of, that should be today, shouldn't it? Is that the vacancy notice as of today instead of the 6th?
It's from the 6th.
It is from the 6th, okay. Vacancy notice as of November 6th, 2023. E, the October 2023 Head Start Governing Board and Policy Council Monthly Report. There being no reason for an executive session tonight, you'll be glad to know that we are canceling that and that we are ready to adjourn. Is there a motion?
So moved.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Second to adjourn. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed by the same sign. Motion passes. We are adjourned.